Promote a culture of inclusion, supercharge your communication, and unleash the full potential of your teams and leaders with the Inclusive Handbook collection from the Diversity Movement. As part of the collection, I wrote the Inclusive Leadership Handbook with Kurt Merriweather to empower leaders with tools needed to cultivate a culture that fosters creativity, innovation, and employee engagement. Through strategies, exercises, and self-reflection, leaders at all levels can enhance their effectiveness. Learn more at thediversitymovement.com/store. Use code HOL at checkout for 25% of your first order.
DEI budgets are under attack, but the goals haven't changed. Whether you're looking to increase your DEI knowledge, expand your market reach, or gain a competitive advantage in business, we have the solution. TDM Library is your single source for expert-curated DEI resources, strategies, and solutions, all designed to help you transform your workplace culture and be a more effective contributor. For $9.99 per month, you get access to our searchable subscription-based digital library. There, you'll find articles, practical how-to guidebooks, podcasts, award-winning microvideos, and more than 700 Q&As, designed to help DEI practitioners, thought leaders, and executives create a more inclusive workplace. Whether you prefer to listen, watch, or read, we have the resources for you. TDM Library goes beyond the basics to dive deep into topics such as inclusive language, the business case for DEI, talent acquisition, and C-suite engagement. For less than the price of a sandwich, you get access to our library of more than 1,000 pieces of original, expert-curated DEI content. Join today and get your first 30 days free. Get your library card now at tdmlibrary.thediversitymovement.com.
Always love my time with DT.
Welcome to the Donald Thompson podcast. I have today a good friend of mine, guest, Mr. Tim Humphrey of IBM. We're gonna kick it today. We're gonna talk business. We're gonna talk racial inequity, how to navigate corporate America, and grow your goals and dreams. So, Tim, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it. This is a long overdue discussion and dialogue that we need to have.
Yeah, that's right. So, Tim, as we get rolling, I want the audience just to get to know a little bit about you, kind of outside of the IBM role, right? Tell me a little bit about the family, where you grew up. Do you have kids? Do you have a partner? Just a few things like that, so we're all talking as friends.
I'd be in trouble if I didn't start with my wife. I'm recently married, got married about 2.5 years ago. So it's just me and my wife, no kids. In terms of the Tim Humphrey story, so to speak, I grew up in Fayetteville, North Carolina. It was me, my mom, my dad, and I had an older sister that's 6 years older than me. My mom was an educator. She taught kindergarten. She went on to be a part of the community college system later in her career. And she always instilled in me the value of education. And my dad was a disciplinarian. Rest in peace. He died a few years ago, but he was a disciplinarian. And he really kept me in line. Where I grew up, there was a lot of trouble that I could get into, and I stayed out of trouble. I came home when the lights outside went on.
Yes, sir.
And I knew to make a beeline home when those lights came on, because I knew there'd be consequences if I didn't. So I grew up in Fayetteville. I decided to go to NC State to study electrical engineering. I had some partial scholarships to cover some of my tuition and expenses. And for the rest of it, I worked basically any job that somebody would pay a 18 or 19-year-old to do. I did everything from selling shoes to telemarketing to custodial work to construction. You name it, I did it.
That's awesome.
In 1995, I got a co-op position with IBM. And I started working in IBM Doing of all things, I was a level 1 technical support call taker for PCs.
That is awesome. And then today, to jump in, right? So now, present day, you are in the data group, but also basically the highest ranking executive for North Carolina for IBM, right? So tell us a little bit about that role, and then we'll dig into some of the topics.
Yeah, my responsibilities in our chief data office is, I have a lot, but to sum it up, I'm basically responsible for helping IBM on its transformation journey go from a fragmented data landscape to a centralized data landscape. We've built out what we call our cognitive enterprise data platform, which, think of, if you're doing business like we have been doing for over 100 years in over 170 countries across multiple lines of businesses, hardware, software, services, financing. You've had acquisitions and divestitures. All of that leads to a very fragmented IT landscape, which then means your data landscape is going to be fragmented. And if you're really going to drive true insights and deliver value through insights, you've got to start rationalizing your data. And you can't just have these silo-driven insights. You have to have these insights that cut across workflows. And to do that, you have to have a platform that brings all that data together.
Gotcha.
And so that's what we've been building out for the past few years. And so I'm responsible for building that out, as well as working across the company, whether you're in marketing or sales or procurement or development, to help deliver those insights to the business to make us run smarter, faster, better.
Got it. No, that's awesome, and a great way to describe it, but also to segue into some of our topics, because what you described, right, is how do you take data and transform it so that you can be smarter and better. And,
Exactly.
As an African-American executive, an entrepreneur myself, and your very strong career and leadership in our community at IBM, we can't ignore some of the things that are going on in our society from a racial unrest standpoint. And so I'm going to dive in a little bit. But one of the things that I want to get a feeling and some feedback from you is both, what is IBM doing, right, from a racial equity standpoint? And specifically, I'd love for you to hit on some of the supplier diversity and different things like that. And then second, what do you think is going to allow us to keep momentum on the positive aspects of this moment?
Yeah. A lot to talk about there. I could probably go on for ever, but I'll try to be brief. In terms of what IBM is doing, look, when this started, the unrest started this year in the middle of the pandemic, around the awful murders that occurred. Our first focus was our employees. That causes stress, it causes emotion, it causes just tremendous angst. So our first priority was on the employees, and me, along with several other senior leaders in the company, spent time connecting with all of our employees and ensuring that they're okay. Letting them know that it's okay for them to show up as their full, authentic self to work, which is something that, quite frankly, people think might be taken for granted, but sometimes you need to express it. So we focused a lot on the employee. We also wanted to make sure we had the resources available to give people help if they need it. So that was number one. Focus on the employee, focus on the people. I always say, any company, at the end of the day, you can have great technology, you can have great products, offerings, services, whatever it is. If your people aren't engaged, you've got problems. So we focus on the people. And then we've been doing a lot. I will probably miss some things here, but we've engaged with elected officials on all levels to help try to influence some areas where we think reform is needed, and partner on various technology aspects of that. I personally have been involved in lots of those discussions at multiple levels. I've engaged here locally with a task force set up by our mayor for a Better Way County. And what does that mean? And how can we recognize some of the inequities that we have, and what can we do to help people fix those inequities? So I've been involved in that. Our CEO came out with an announcement a while back to exit the facial recognition technology business. And that was to show that, we have to have a commitment for what I call good tech, to ensure that technology is not used for purposes that continue to promote things like systemic racism or bias, which in the wrong hands, certain technology is just technology, so it can be used for bad purposes. So we exited that business. We have had a big commitment to increasing our partnerships with historically Black colleges and universities, and that's on all levels. And we really want to push some of our cutting edge advanced technology like quantum computing and introducing that into curriculums and research amongst the HBCU community. So we've had some announcements around that work. Plus, we started this program a concept we called New Collar a few years ago under our previous CEO, Jenny Remetti. And it's the concept of the jobs are changing and the skills you need to be proficient in the present and the future can be taught and can be learned. So we have this little slogan that's called "No degree, no problem." We will train you. We will take people from unconventional routes into technology fields. We focus on things like apprenticeships. We have schooling that you can graduate from a special program and you can have a no-cost associate's degree along with real practical experience. We call this our P-Tech program. And then you can come right in and be productive to IBM. And we focus this in areas where there's a lot of at-risk youth. So it really, really benefits people that need more opportunity. So those are some of the things we've done there. We have a big apprenticeship program as well that pulls heavily on community colleges. We have a reentry program. Maybe you had kids and you had to take some time off, or health type things had to take some time off. So we have programs to try to make that easier now. So it's a real focus on diversifying the workforce from multiple angles. And look, there's more we can do, and there's more we've done. And I'm proud that we're doing a lot, but I'll be the first one to tell you, I think there's more we can do. And I challenge all my peers across industry, there's more you can do. And we've done a lot that's just simply listen to what our employees say they need in their communities. And we start a lot of programming around helping out in the communities. So I'll switch a little bit because I know you wanted to talk about what we're doing with suppliers. And I'm very proud of this. I do believe that money is the great equalizer. And when you have limited opportunities to grow businesses, it's very difficult to do business with large companies like an IBM. And there's some great companies that are minority owned out there that have great products, but maybe they haven't achieved the scale yet to be able to do business internationally across, multiple locations and things of that nature. And, if you are irresponsible, you can just look at your processes for doing business with you as a company and say, that's what they are, and not really say, how do we enable people to grow with us? So we have always had a big focus on supplier diversity, but I'm very glad to say that we have now increased our spending targets tenfold for minority-owned businesses with IBM. So we've got aggressive targets, and not only are we saying we're going to put these targets in place of here's how we want to spend it, we got management system and reviews around it. Because I always say you won't get the results unless you measure it and you look for what are the impediments along the way. So we will be doing that. And I hope that, this starts to infuse wealth into specifically the Black community, which then you start to get to this concept of equal opportunity, right?
Yep.
Because the door is open.
That's exactly right. And you made a very powerful point. Money is the great equalizer because money creates, right, where you can live, which then creates where you go to school, right?
Exactly.
Money creates, right? If you have money, then you're not paying overdraft charges on your checking account at $30. If you have money, then let alone you're going to be healthier because you're going to be able to go to the doctor when you need it early versus waiting until something is a catastrophe. And so I very much agree with that. And I think that I'm proud of you. I'm excited for IBM because that supplier spend growth means that those that are taking that entrepreneurial dare, people of color, are going to have that much more chance to make it. And
Yes.
then the thing that you said about no degree, no problem. Hey, I wish IBM had that 20 years ago for me. I had to come up school of hard knocks. They didn't care at that point, Tim. They were like, you're gonna.
Oh, trust me. I might have had a different path myself.
Oh God. So that is good stuff.
And you know what? On all jokes aside, when I look at some of the things I learned, if I wanted to say I went to school, I got this knowledge, and I'm just gonna go and use that knowledge and that's going to carry me, it would have never worked. I had to keep learning anyway, right? I had to have this continual learning mindset. I learned Pascal as a programming language when I was in college. I never wrote a line of Pascal code in any of my career. Things were like, I think by the time I graduated NC State, the recommended language was C. It wasn't even Pascal. So, technology changes and moves so fast that you need skills and experience, and you have to be willing to say, I'm going to learn the next thing. And that's what I love about this new collar program, because you take people that are hungry. They are hungry, right? You take people like veterans, and you take people that, like you said, maybe they didn't have an opportunity to go to the greatest schools, but now they got a chance. And man, they embrace this continual learning mindset, and they deliver great results.
That is awesome and encouraging. One of the things that, there's a lot on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And obviously with the diversity movement, we're in that space. And you and I talk a lot on these topics. One of the things on the edge of this conversation is how do people of color navigate when they're in an all-white environment? What are some of the things that we need to think about? Some of the things we need to maybe reflect on how we build our goals, how we look at our behaviors. What are some thoughts as you mentor folks and your experience as a leader that maybe can help folks that are in that situation of a predominantly white organization navigate a little bit better?
Yeah, it's like, this is a very important topic to me, and I do try to spend a lot of time with early professionals and senior professionals, providing advice and counsel and mentoring relationships on this exact subject. And one, I do think you have to be grounded in what is going to make you successful, right? For me, it's always been three things, and I sort of preach these three things to all of my mentees out there. Anybody that's listening is probably shaking their head, and they know what I'm getting ready to say. High performance mindset, that's number one. So performance, and you have to take the mindset of, I am going to do my best. I'm going to give it my all, regardless of who's around, who's looking. We all know the people. They do a great job when the boss is around, but they're a pain to work with when the boss isn't around, or they slack when the boss isn't around. We all know those people, but you got to break that. You got to have this high performance mindset all the time. I don't care what you're doing. If you're doing the Donald Thompson podcast, if you're cleaning up the office, if you're presenting to the CEO, it doesn't matter. You should always have high performance mindset. Second one is, and this is one that I didn't have and nobody really shared with me as I was coming up very early in my career, but you have to have a vision about what do you think you can accomplish? What do you think you can achieve? Who are some good role models that maybe have achieved what you would like to achieve with your career? And then how do you assess yourself against those people to find your strengths and your weaknesses and your gaps and work on those gaps and get the experiences and coaching and skills and learning to be able to overcome those gaps? So I say having a vision of what you want to do is so important, and having a vision around what you can become. When I first got my job, I was happy to get a job, right? Because that's sort of how I was taught. You go to work, you just go to work, you get a job. I wasn't thinking about where could I take it. I wasn't thinking about my career. I was thinking about a job. And that is something that, I don't think that it's a lot of early professional Black employees get, right? Like I didn't get that growing up in Fayetteville. So that's the last one. And then, that's the second one. And then the third thing, and I'll try not to be so long-winded, is relationships. I didn't get this one either, but this concept of building meaningful relationships with your coworkers, it means so much to what you can do. It means so much to your ability to execute as a leader, to grow your career, to be noticed. And it's beyond networking. I always tell people, you can network, that doesn't get you much. Relationships, knowing that when I see Donald Thompson in my inbox, man, I might have a busy day and I might have 500 emails that I haven't read that day, but let me go click and see what Donald wants, because that relationship is there, and that opens up your ability to do more, to have more impact, to get help when needed, to be pulled for opportunities. People pull people for opportunities that they know, that they like, that they have a good relationship, that they respect their work, that they want to be around. These are concepts that I don't think we teach. So those to me are like the big three that I think we need to focus on from a very early point in our career, to really, really be successful and to really, really start to have more Donald Thompsons around that we can point to as role models.
No, I appreciate it. That is, Tim, in all seriousness, that is a 5-minute dissertation in winning with the cards that you're dealt. Right. And so a lot of times my perspective is, yes, there is inequity in corporate America in the United States, but there is also a land of opportunity that if we adhere to these three things you described, it's going to give us more than a fighting chance while the other things have to catch up.
Exactly.
But we can't wait for the world to treat us equally.
Exactly.
You have to win, even if you have to do a little bit more, even if you have to do a lot more. And then in your position, in my position, we can now look out and say, all right, who can we make the world better for so that it is more even? But that's only because we've been valuable to the people around us, right? There's a skills exchange thing going on to move up in any organization. And if you show that value, then people will open those doors. And if they're closing the door because of color, you got to find a different door. But all the doors aren't closed like maybe 100 years ago, even 50 years ago, right? Yeah. There's enough open that we can peek through and then pull some others with you, right? And keep it moving. So I appreciate that response. That's good stuff.
Look, you said one thing there that I just want to touch on a little bit, because it's something that I've stressed in relationships, and I've had pointed out to me a couple of times early on in my career. You said, are you bringing value? Right? Are you bringing value to the business, to other leaders, to other fellow colleagues and peers, to clients, etc.? And there was a point in I'll admit it, there was a point in my career where I sort of looked at myself as, I'm smart, I'm a good engineer, I know what to do, I can do my job well. Why can't I get more? And I had a mentor really put me in check. And she said to me, "You are not all that." And I was mad and hurt. And I couldn't take what she was trying to tell me. But what she was trying to tell me is, yes, you're smart, but what makes you different? What makes you stand out from your peers? Why is it that somebody would pick you over the guy sitting next to you in the lab? What have you done? What is your value proposition? And I started thinking about it from that perspective, and it changed my entire career. Changed my entire career. Because I was sort of like, why can't I just get this next job, this lead position, this management job? I can do it, but I hadn't demonstrated any of my value to a point that it made people start looking at me differently than all my peers.
Yep. My story, and I've been very, very blessed. And Grant Willard, my mentor and good friend, I was employee number 7 in a company called iCube. And Grant took a chance on me. I was a bag carrying sales guy. Didn't know anything about the tech space, but I could sell, and I was hardworking. I could take a no and keep moving, right, to get to the yes. And he figured he could teach me the other things. And ultimately, after working for Grant for 10 years, our company was acquired, but they only wanted part of the company. So Grant spun out part of the company, went with Adobe. And so we had this small little business that was left. And I became the CEO of that little spin out business. And that's how I got my chance. Yeah. The scary version for my life is if any day during those 10 years when he was thinking about promoting me, if that was the day I showed up lazy, if that was the day I was complaining, if that was the day I was giving excuses. But every day I did as good as I could do to do more. And then when that moment came that he needed to decide who was going to run this small little company, he picked me.
Awesome.
Right? And I'll never forget that every day is interview day, because you don't know who's watching. And you don't know who's watching that can change the game for you.
Exactly.
So you better keep it moving. And that's how I thought. Yeah.
Well, you were better than me. I didn't develop that mindset until a little bit later.
So no, that is good stuff. Let me ask this, Tim. When you think about the points of progress that you've made, what are some of you mentioned the 3 keys, you mentioned mentorship, but what are some of the other skills outside of the technical that you needed to develop so that you could be trusted with leadership, right? That you could move from a key player, but not a leader in the company, to a leadership development track record that you've been on?
That's a great question, because part of that vision, I had to be very real with myself on what my strengths and weaknesses were. And when I started down focusing on those 3 paths a long time ago, the number one thing that I had to focus on was my communication skills. I was a really good technical guy. I was a good problem solver, great engineer, and was a decent leader. But I realized if my communication skills didn't go to the next level, I was not going to progress to the next level. And what do I mean by communication skills? Can I get in front of the large room and keep everybody's attention and focus and deliver my points clearly? That's one thing. I couldn't do that early in my career. I could not do it. Could I negotiate with people that had maybe a slightly different perspective on actions that we should take or how an outcome should be formed? Could I negotiate well enough to be able to find common ground that keeps the business moving forward? couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And the reason why I wasn't able to do a good job of negotiations is because my communication wasn't there. I couldn't communicate the same, I couldn't find I'll call it the common ground language. I could speak the engineering language, but I couldn't speak all the rest of it. So that was a big gap for me. Another gap for me was, and this one really helped me, identifying people that will give me real feedback, real time. Because there was a period in my career where I felt like I was doing a great job and I felt like I was delivering results, but things weren't happening for me. And somebody gave me this advice: get some people that are going to be around you when you're working, that you can trust. And oh, by the way, when they give you the feedback, you're not going to debate it. You're going to reflect on it. Mm-hmm. And I started doing that. So I would be in a meeting that maybe a meeting didn't go so well. And, I took a chance with some people and said, hey, I just want to get some feedback about that meeting. And they say, well, Tim, the meeting is what it is because maybe the meeting didn't go well. I say, no, I don't want to talk about that. I want to get from you, how did I make you feel in that meeting? What do you think I said that was wrong? What could I have done better? And I just want to hear it. And so that really, when I started doing that, that really helped a lot for me. And it helped me develop a sense of empathy when I'm in these positions where people aren't seeing eye to eye, or maybe everybody's aligned on the outcome, but we have no idea how we're going to get there.
Yep.
So it started helping me in these situations that come up where, and in your leadership journey, you get more and more of those types of situations where you have to help the team move quickly to an outcome. And that's your job. You got to remove these roadblocks. And if you can't find them, or if you're focusing on the wrong things, you're not being an effective leader. And feedback was the only way I got over that gap.
That's powerful. I'm going to link it back to the three things you described as a mentor: high performance mindset, personal vision, find role models that you can map against, and relationships. And that third one, relationships, kicks back to what you just said, because who's going to give you feedback if you don't have good relations with them? Right? They're going to give you that false confidence. Oh, it was okay. Right? That false veneer, because they're really not paying attention to your success or failure. But if you have those deep relationships and you ask a question, that person that cares about you is going to give you that feedback at least once or twice to see what you're going to do with it. Right? To see if you really want it.
Oh, I know. Hey, look, if I jump all over you and disagree with it, next time I come to you, you're not going to tell me. You're going to give me some sugar-coated answer.
That's exactly right. When Tim, with all the different experiences, let's now look at some of the powerful leaders you've come in contact with, right? Who are some of the leaders, whether it's books you've read, whether it's IBM or outside, that you admire, right? That you look to and say, you know what, that person's getting it right. That person is somebody worth emulating. And the reason that I ask that is that that'll further illuminate whether it's books or podcasts that people can read of other people that they can reach out and touch and follow like you did.
Man, where do I start? I love studying people, and I love hearing their journeys and what they overcame. And I am one of these people. Somebody asked me, how is it that you've been a good manager? And I've said, well, every time I've experienced a leader or supervisor or manager, I don't care what job I was doing, there were some you liked, there's some you didn't like. And I studied both of them equally. And I think about these things they do that I don't like, and I just don't do them. And I thought about the things that people did that I liked, and I emulate. I had a Black female manager early in my career, Cindy Edwards. And She had a jar, a big, massive jar of candy on her office desk. And I would always go by there and get some candy because young Tim could eat a lot of candy and didn't gain weight. Now, if I look at Snickers, I'm going to gain 5 pounds. But I would always go by there and get some candy. And then one day I asked her, I said, why do you have all this candy out on your desk? And she said, if I have the candy on my desk, people will come for the candy. But maybe they'll stop and tell me something about the business or something that's going on with them, and I'll have the opportunity to help, or I maybe have the opportunity to learn something new. And I was like, man, that's brilliant. Guess what I did my very first management job? I bought a big jar and I said, I'm going to fill it up with candy. So Cindy Edwards was a phenomenal leader. So she's one leader that I just completely respect and trust. Another leader in this story I want to talk about is my predecessor, Fran O'Sullivan. I worked in her organization for many years in the PC business in IBM and Lenovo, and I was fortunate to follow in her footsteps as the site executive for RTP and the state executive for North Carolina for IBM when she retired. And what I loved about her, she had a phenomenal way of taking the complex and making it simple. And it was almost like magic when I would watch. If it was complex, she made it simple. If we were all fighting and arguing, she found the simple resolution for it. She always said, I'm gonna take the complex and make it simple. And she used to say, if you walk out of a meeting and you can't easily explain what the actions and the outcomes are, then you don't have the right actions and outcomes. I said, right? Like she was laser focused on making things simple and making sure teams could execute. So she was a phenomenal leader, mentor, friend. And then, one last person I'm going to point out is somebody. This is one of my former employees who is a great leader that I really look up to and respect, Rashida Hodge. And she worked for me, I don't know when it was, maybe 2010, 2011. And she's one of those people, when you saw her work and you met her, you just knew she had it. And I watched her grow her career, and she has just been so focused. I've never seen anybody that could focus and just laser focus on what needs to be done, and no quit, no let up until it's done. I mean, laser focus. On top of that, extremely brilliant, can go from doing supply chain to doing AI work quick, and picks it up and learns it. I was like, how do you learn this stuff so fast? And she was amazing. I mentored her. She now mentors me. So, those are 3 examples. There's a lot more people that I look up to, that I admire, that I steal some of their tricks of the trade from. I have no shame. If somebody's doing something I think is gonna help or benefit me or make me a better leader, I will take it. I will ask you, how do you do it?
Me too. Like, hey, listen, anyone that's success is a thief, because we're stealing ideas, man. Like, we're stealing best practices and trying, and it's that learning piece. You said so much throughout our conversation that is powerful. I want to come back to one point and see if you want to expand on it a little bit. Beyond networking. Because everyone, you need to network. Your network is your net worth. And I've said all of these things. But what does beyond networking mean to you?
Yeah, I think, Look, I think I can know a lot of people. You know, you look at my LinkedIn page and you say, wow, he knows a lot of people. There's a lot of connections. I know them. I met them at a conference. Maybe I did some work with them. But to me, beyond networking, and don't get me wrong, I think networking is very valuable, right? You got to know people. But where you start to get exponential value is when you build meaningful, substantial relationships. And that takes work. And you have to say, I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to, for example, not now because, you know, most people are staying home and nobody's traveling, but, you know, pre-pandemic, I was traveling all the time. I had multiple commitments for my job. I would barely sleep. But you know what? Sometimes I need to go have the session after work with somebody just to get to know them and sit down and have a beverage of choice and talk and get to know the person and do it a few times. And guess what? Might turn out that we just don't build that relationship or build that mutual ground. But if you're not trying, then you're never going to get these meaningful, deep relationships. And that's what I mean when I say beyond networking. It's one thing to know people. It's another thing that, and if I call you in the middle of the night and you look at my phone, are you going to go, Tim? Click. Or Tim, you know, reject. Or you're going to go, oh my gosh, Tim's calling me in the middle of the night. There must be something wrong. What can I do to help?
That's right. That's right. I'll expand upon that because we're on the same page there. And I remember when I think about beyond networking, it is also how do you add reciprocal value to people as well. You know, there's plenty of people that reach out to you, be the same way, and they have an ask, right? They have a mode, and that's fine. Yep. But they're not as quick on the trigger when you need something, right? You know what I mean? Like there's no reciprocation. You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
They're good at the ask part, but not at the give part, right? And so, you know, you have to be able to do both and be open to that to create that networking relationship first, and then the ability to go beyond, right? In terms of those relationships. I think that's equally as important.
Hey, I will tell you this. When I started focusing on building relationships, I thought I had some relationships that I really didn't have a meaningful relationship. It was one way. Yep. And I found out the hard way that it was one way. So that point is not lost on me.
And it's like for people early in their careers that are on that way up, right? It's also not hard to do because a lot of times people say, well, you know, what is the goal to get ahead in life and business? And you mentioned relationships. We don't talk about that in school about how to build powerful professional relationships and skills, right? We talk about how to get recognition.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
We talk about how to get the high score on the test, but not how to get people to want to be on that team with you and run with you. I want to be respectful of your time. So I want to finish with this. And this has been great. Like I've got 5 pages of notes. So I don't know if I owe you dinner. I don't know if I owe you $1,000, but I got like 5 pages of notes that's going to help me. And we'll see if it helps.
Hey, the first time I met you in my office, I hadn't eaten all day. And 20 minutes later, a nice meal showed up. So you don't owe me a thing. I will always remember that. You are a classy guy. I mean, I was blown away.
I appreciate it. What would you like to share as we wrap up on any of the topics, whether it's leadership, whether it's the racial inequity unrest, whether it's whatever's on your brain as we wrap things up? What would you like to share with our audience?
Wow. We talked about so much. I think the one thing I would like to say that maybe I didn't say is I do believe that businesses, corporations have a responsibility to society. And the fact of the matter is you make your top and bottom line from the communities you serve. I think you owe it to those communities to give back. So I would say I challenge fellow leaders that are listening to this podcast. Are you doing enough? What can you do? If you don't have the answers, ask the questions to the right people. I also say, look at your communities. Does your workforce look like your community? Probably doesn't. But then take the action to say, we're gonna change that. We're gonna fix it, and start on that journey, right? And it is a journey. And a lot of people, I think it's gonna happen overnight, and we know it won't, right? Progress takes time, but if you don't start, you'll never have any progress. So that's my message that I'd like to say, just a call to action, a challenge to all of our peers that might be listening to this, to think about what you can do to give back, to think about, are your organizations a model for diversity? And if not, that's okay, but all right, can you commit to getting there?
That's powerful. High performance mindset, personal vision, build relationships. Team, that was Tim Humphrey from IBM, and a good friend, great leader. Tim, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man. I always love my time with DT. I question my drive. I tell myself I'm worth it. No one's perfect. I gotta try. I'm working at my craft.
This podcast is edited and produced by Earfluence. If you're looking for more information on how full-service podcast production can amplify your voice, build your community, visit earfluence.com. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon on the Donald Thompson Podcast.